They call it a midlife crisis. I call it the slow suicide of a happy life. I traded 30 years of absolute loyalty for 3 years of excitement.
But I was just digging my own grave. And tonight, as I sit here in this empty apartment, listening to the clock tick, I would give every single dollar I ever made just to hear my first wife ask me how my day was. Just one more time. But that phone, it never rings. It started when 50. That number. It messes with a man's head. I looked in the mirror and I didn't see a grandfather. I saw EO. I saw a man who had built a construction empire from dirt. I had the money, the respect, the custom-made Italian suits. I felt powerful. I felt invincible. But then, I would go home. Home was Martha. We had been married since we were 22. She was a good woman. God, she was a saint. But to my arrogant eyes back then, she was dust. Old furniture. She was comfortable, predictable, boring. I remember one Tuesday night vividly. It was raining. I came home late, feeling like a king after closing $1 million deal. I walked into the kitchen, expecting a celebration, and there was Martha. She was wearing those same faded flannel pajamas she said worn for a decade. Her hair was tied back in a messy bun, ray roast showing. She was scraping leftovers into a Tupperware container. The smell of pot roast and cleaning spray. It hit me. She looked up and smiled. A gentle, tired smile. She said, "Dinner is in the microwave, Robert. Don't torture, blood pressure meds." That was it. No fireworks. No adoration. Just reality. I looked at her, and I didn't feel love. I felt suffocated. I felt like I was trapped in a black and white movie while the rest of the world was living in color. I thought to myself, is this it? Is this how I end? Eating reheated midlife crust from a woman who only cares stout happens in cholesterol. I deserve more. That's what I told myself. I worked too hard to be fist-bored. I started to reason her. Not for anything she did wrong, but simply for being there. For being the witness to my aging. Every time I looked at her wrinkles, I was reminded of my own mortality. And I hated it. She was 28. Fresh out of business school. She didn't smell like cleaning spray or old pot roast. She smelled like vanilla and expensive ambition. She was my new assistant, and she was dangerous. Not because she was beautiful. Anyone can be beautiful, but because she looked at me the way I wanted to be seen. When I talked about the glory days of my company, Martha would nod and go back to her knitting. She had heard those stories 1,000 times. But Lisa leaned in. Her eyes widened. She hummed on every word. She made me feel like the smartest man in the room. She lauded my jokes, even the bad ones. For the first time in 20 years, it didn't feel like a proverb or a raspender I cramper. I felt like a man. A desired man. It started innocently in a lunch here, a late night at the office there. But the devil is in the details. I remember the moment I crossed the line. It wasn't in a hotel room. It was on my phone. I was sitting on my couch on a Sunday afternoon. Martha was vacuuming the rug, the noise droning on and on. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, hiding the screen. It was a message from Lisa. Just a photo of her at a winery, holding a glass of Pinot Noir, with the caption, "Wish you were explain this wine to me. You know everything." My heart hammered abest, my ribs. It was a rush of adrenaline I hadn't felt in decades. I looked up at Martha. She was sweating, pushing that heavy vacuum cleaner back and forth, trying to make home clean for me. And you know what I did? I felt disgusted. I looked at her gray hair and thought, why can't you be more like her? Why did you let yourself go? The comparison began. And comparison is the thief of joy. Martha texted me about leaking sinks and grocery list. Lisa texted me about dreams and luxury and how powerful. I looked in my suit. I became addicted to the vibration of my phone. I became addicted to the lie that I was young again. I told myself I deserved a ride for Walsh, all my hard work. Martha was the past. Liza was the future. I thought I was out. The day I left, I didn't yell. I didn't throw things. I treated it like a business transition. I had rehearsed my speech in the car for 3 days. I told myself I was being civil. But looking back, I was just being a card. It was a Tuesday evening. The same kitchen table where we had paid bills for 30 years, where we had planned our children's birthdays, where we had cried over my mother's death. I sat Martha down. I pushed a white envelope across the oak table. "I'm leaving, Martha," I said. "'Tis Kai." My voice was steady. "I'm not happy anymore. We've Rammerschmeip." I went to feel alive again. I expected her to scream. I expected her to throw the tea mug at my head. I was ready for a fight. I wanted a fight. A fight would have justified my living. It would have made me the victim. But she didn't scream. She just sat there. Her hands, raw from years of gardening and washing dishes, rested on the table. She looked at the envelope, then she looked at me. Her eyes, they didn't fill with anger. They filled with a kind of pity that terrified me. Asked only one question. She didn't ask, "Is there someone else?" She knew. A woman always knows. She asked it quietly, "Robert, are you absolutely sure this is who you want to be?" I didn't answer the question. I stood up. I said, "The lawyers will handle the rest." I packed my bags in 20 minutes. I took my suits, my watches, my checkbook. I left behind photo albums. I left behind the Christmas ornaments we made with the kids. I left behind a woman who had nursed me through Miamina when I went broke and furious. As I walked out the front door, I heard a sound. It wasn't a sob. It was the sound of a chair scraping against the floor, then silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. I got into my Porsche, revved the engine, and drove away. I told myself the tightness in my chest was rife. I told myself I was free. I was a fool. I wasn't walking into freedom. I was walking into a trap I had set for myself. The first 6 months were a blur of airport lounges and champagne corks. I bought a penthouse in the city. I bought Lisa a convertible. I told myself I was living the dream. But the truth, I was exhausted. Living with a 28-year-old when you are 50 is not a romance. It is an endurance sport. Lisa didn't like silence. She needed noise, people, attention. We went to clubs where the music was so loud I could feel the bass thumping in my pacemaker. I dyed my hair jet black to hide the gray. I started taking pills to keep up my energy. I wore skinny jeans that cut off my circulation just because this weight made me look hip. I became an actor in my own life. I remember one night in Miami. We were at this exclusive rooftop bar. It was 2 a.m. My knees were screaming in pain. My eyes were burning. All I wanted was my old armchair and a cup of decaf tea. But Liza, she was on the dance floor, spinning in a silver dress, lowing in. I waved her over, shouting over the music, "Honey, let's go. I'm tired." She stopped dancing. Her smile dropped instantly. She walked over, not with concern, but with annoyance. She leaned down, smelling of vodka and sweat, and whispered in my ear. She didn't say, "Are you okay?" or "Let's go home." She said, "Don't be such a buzzkill, Robert. You were embarrassing me. Go sit in the corner if you can handle it." It was a slap in the face. I sat back in the VIP booth, nursing a warm whiskey, watching my young wife dance with men who had full heads of hair and no mortgages. I looked at my reflection in the glass table.
The dye was sweating down my temples. I didn't look young. I looked like a desperate old clown painted up for a show nobody wanted to watch. That night, I lay awake in the hotel bed while she passed out drunk.
I thought about Martha. I wondered if she was sleeping soundly. I wondered if the house was quiet. I missed the silence. God, I missed the silence. Then the market crashed, and my health followed suit. It wasn't a dramatic heart attack. It was a mild stroke. Just enough to make my left hand shake uncontrollably. Just enough to make me drool a little when I slept. Just enough to turn me from a silver fox into a geriatric patient. I came home from the hospital needing care. I needed help walking to the bathroom. I needed help cutting my steak. I expected my wife to step up. I expected tenderness. Instead, Lisa hired a nurse. She told me, "I'm not cut out for this nursing stuff, Robert. Blood makes me queasy." But it wasn't the blood. It was me. One afternoon, the nurse was off duty. I tried to pour myself a glass of water. My shaking hand slipped. The glass shattered. Waiter soaked. The expensive Persian rut. I slipped and fell into the mess, unable to dip up. Lisa walked in. She didn't rush to my side. She didn't scream my name in panic. She stood in the doorway, looking at me like I was a stain on her perfect floor. "Jesus, Robert," she sighed, checking her manicure. "Look at this mess. You ruining everything." She stepped over me to get her car keys. She didn't help me up. She called the cleaning service and walked out. "I'm going to brunch," she said. "The house smells like medicine." It's depressing. I lay there on the wet rug for 20 minutes until I could drag myself to the sofa. As I lay there, shivering, a memory hit me so hard it knocked the wind out of me. 10 years ago, I had the stomach flu. Violent, disgusting sickness. I had vomited all over the bathroom floor in the middle of the night. Martha, my sweet Martha, she didn't call a maid. She got down on her hands and knees. Without doubt, she cleaned it up with a rags. She wiped my face with a cool towel and whispered, "It's okay, Bob. I've you. I'm here." She loved the ugly parts of me. Liza couldn't even stand beside of my weakness. I realized then, I wasn't her husband. I was her ATM. And now that the ATM was broken, She was looking for a new bank. The end didn't come with a bang. It came with a bank notification. My accounts were draining faster than I could fill them. The medical bills, the mortgage on the penthouse, license as allowance. It was a black hole. I had to sit lazy down and tell her the word she hated most: budget. I found her in the bedroom, packing a suitcase. Not a weekend bag. Everything. The Louis Vuitton bags I bought her, the diamond jewelry, even the cashmere throws from the living room. Going somewhere? I asked her, my voice trembling. She didn't even look up. She zipped a bag shut with a sharp hiss. I'm leaving, Robert. My lawyer sent the papers to your office this morning. Stood there, stunned. Leaving? Because things are getting a little tight. We can downsize. We can. She turned around, and her face, it was a mask of cold boredom. She loud, a cruel sound. Downsize. Robert, look at yourself. You ruling. You limb. You re-broke. Do you really think I signed up for this? I felt a surge of pathic anger. I gave you everything. I gave you my life. You said you loved me. She walked up to me, close enough that I could smell the perfume I had paid for. She looked me in the eye, and she didn't blink. I loved the life you gave me, Robert. There is a difference, she said. Let's be honest for once. You didn't marry me for my brain, and I didn't marry you for your personality. It was a transaction. You wanted a trophy. I wanted a sponsor. But now, the sponsorship is over. She patted my cheek. It was the most humiliating touch of my life. It was the way you pat a dog you were about to put down. Don't look so shocked, she whispered. You left a good woman for a pretty face. Why are you surprised that I'm leaving a sinking ship for a better yet? She walked out the door, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Click, click, click. Then the heavy thud of the front door closing. I was left standing in the middle of a room full of expensive furniture that I would soon have to sell, realizing that I had paid for my own destruction. Time is a cruel teacher. It gives you the test first and the lesson afterward. I am 80 years old now. I live in a one-bedroom apartment that smells of damp carpet and instant noodles. The penthouse is gone. The Porsche is gone. But those are just things I can live with, though. Things will. What kills me is the memory of home. Last Christmas, I did something pathic. I rented a cheap car and drove to the suburbs. To the house I used to own. To Martha. I parked across the street, huddled in my coat, watching the windows like a thief. Snow was falling. The house was glowing with warm, yellow light. I saw a silhouette moving inside. The front door opened. Out stepped Martha. She was older, yes. She moved a bit slower, but she looked beautiful. Not the glamorous, plastic beauty of Lisa, but the beauty of a woman who is at peace. She was lowing, wrapping a scarf around a little girl my a granddaughter I have never met. And then, a man walked out behind her. He wasn't rich. He was wearing a bulky, knitted sweater and old glasses. He didn't look like a CEO. He looked white if ever. He put his hand on Martha's shoulder, a gentle, familiar touch. She leaned into him. She didn't pull away. She looked at him with a warmth she used to save for me. My heart shattered, not into two pieces, but into dust. I wanted to run across the street. I wanted to scream, "That's my life. That's my wife. Those are my grandchildren." But I froze. I realized the horrifying truth. I wasn't their favor or grandfather anymore. I was a stranger. I was a cautionary tale they probably whispered about at dinner. "Don't be like Grandpa Robert." I watched them get into a minivan and drive off to look at Christmas lights. I sat there in the dark, in my rental car, shivering. I had traded that warmth, that loyalty, that family, for a few years of ego and a woman who hated the smell of old age. I was a ghost hunting a life I had voluntarily escorted. So here I am, the king of nothing. My dinner tonight is as a can of soap. I'll eat it standing over the sink because sitting at a table for one feels too pathetic. My phone is fully charged, but it hasn't rung in 3 days. The only person who calls me is a telemarketer trying to sell me funeral insurance. Ironically, that's the only investment I actually need now. To any man listening to this, to any man looking at his wife across the dinner table and feeling bored, listen to me closely. You think you when excitement. You think you when passion. You think the grass is greener on the other side. I'm telling you, the grass isn't greener. It's artificial turf. It looks good from a distance, but up close, it's plastic. It's hard. And it doesn't grow. Don't mistake the silence of a long marriage for a lack of love. That silence is comfort. It's history. It's the safety of knowing someone has your back even when you're worst. I traded the safety for a thrill. And yes, the thrill was intoxicating. For a minute. But thrills fade. Beauty fades. And when the lights go out, and you're old and you're sick, you don't want a house, wife. You want a can one. I would wiven thing to go back to that boring Tuesday night, to smell the pot roast, to see Martha in her old flannel pajamas. I would hold her. I would tell her she's beautiful. I wouldn't let go. But I can go back. I can only sit here in the wreckage of my own ego and warn you. Don't be me. Hug your boring wife tonight. Because let me tell you, dying of boredom is illusory. Dying of loneliness is a curse. I'm 8 years old. I was right about one thing back then. I did get a new life. I just didn't know it would be a life sentence.